I am Prateek. I work at the web team at Porter, and the topic for the day is web through the lens of SRE. So before I go ahead, a bit about Porter. So Porter is an intra-city logistics company. We connect people and businesses with their last mile delivery needs with a network of around 5 lakh driver partners. And we are in 19 cities across India and 2 cities outside India. Okay. So that was a bit about Porter. So let's get into the talk. So the talk will basically cover what is SRE, why it is relevant in the software engineering world, and what the team at Porter and how we are approaching it. We are just 6 months old into SRE when it comes to web, but I think we are going steady, and you would see more in the talk today. SRE. So SRE is a set of principles and practices to build, scale, architect, and operate large-scale operations to amaze customers with reliability. Just focus on the last line, amaze customers with reliability. So I think we all here are builder of products. We love to build cool features, and but is it of no use if the customers do not find it cool? They, instead of seeing the UIs, they see 5 XXs and something went wrong, right? So that is what SRE is in a nutshell. You can also say it's a means to build services that are stable, fast, and secure. Cool. So we can't fix something if we cannot measure it, right? Now, customer feelings cannot be measured, at least accurately. But we can measure facts, and facts that maps to feelings, so that we can, with a decent accuracy, say ki, haan, whatever I have built, my customer is loving it as well. So here comes SLIs. SLIs stand for service level indicators, and they actually impact reliability. SLIs are something which accurately can tell the state of your service. So your product ultimately boils down to the service, right? So this, for example, is our attempt to understand the reliability of our web app. So if you see this metric value, it is nothing but fatal plus non-fatal divided by total sessions. That is the value I have. It's not the best, but it gives us something. So if you see this 4.83, we would see that this week the errors were high. And we will then go ahead and investigate why that was. Okay, so this is just an example of what SLIs can do for us. So before we go ahead, let's understand what SRE, how SRE looks like in software engineering world. So the way we visualize it is collect, monitor, fix. Collect you collect everything that you need to actually get to the fix part. Logging, errors, traces. So errors and logging, these are fundamental, we all know about it, but they tell us the state of your system, your service. Traces is a step above, which actually tells how the system is interacting, especially today in a distributed architecture, where you can say track that your web request, which originates on your client app, it goes to your web server, it goes to the backend server, and you can trace the whole thing, something like a flame graph. And if your request is taking a lot of time, you can say which part of the service is delaying it. Go there and optimize it. In a nutshell, that was traces do for us. So once you have all of this, it is of no use until you aggregate and make metrics out of it, like latency, error rate. And that is where we come to the second part, monitoring. Now, if this metric, we have a metric, we put a threshold, and if that metric breaches the threshold, we send out a notification, something like an AWS alarm. And then once it goes, it should go to someone who can actually fix the problem. This is we making our metrics actionable, right? So something like a alerting or a SRE dashboard, this is where monitoring part comes in. You monitor your service. The last part, fix. This is where actual service is improved. So it has two parts, mitigation and prevention. Mitigation is something when you have a downtime, you have a production issue. What will you do to minimize the duration of that start? Because that is where you are losing money every minute. Prevention is once you have had your downtime, or a production issue, you make sure you do not get it again. And you get a new cool production issue, not the same one, right? So that is where we'll talk more about how can do that. But this was a nutshell. Before we go ahead and implement something, so whatever I discussed were basic principles and philosophies of SRE. They are always the same. Your situations, your errors can be different, but you will find similar set of principles being applied everywhere. Now at Porter, when it comes to from a web perspective, we have kind of 4 types of systems: web apps, web views, web servers, lambdas. Web servers are basically that serves your web app, something like an index HTML, which is served from here. Web apps and web views, web app something that opens on a browser. Web views is almost similar, does that it opens in a mobile platform, if I were to say. And lambdas are serverless functions. At Porter, the web team leverages it to build invoices for a multiple use case. Like when you complete an order on Porter platform, we send an invoice. So we build it through a serverless function called Lambda. For the sake of this talk, I'll be restricting my SRE discussion on web apps and web views. So again, I'll fall back to the philosophy which I discussed, collect. So let's look at errors and logs. So how do you look at errors on web app? You first capture it. You have to capture it. So you can use Sentry, Datadog. Then you classify it. You should know what kinds of errors. You can't classify 100%, but you can do it to a 95% to a good accuracy. So it can be a 4xx, it can be a 5xx, it can be an API contract failure, which is very common in the life of a web developer. We said something, they sent something, right? Then we have network failure, network is timing out, right? So some of these parameters you can classify your errors. Then you can prioritize which ones to fix. Obviously, frequency plays an important role, the frequency of errors. Then you debug. We have source maps on client, and then we have session replays. This you guys would know about. Session replays is one step up where you can actually reproduce how your user is using. You can actually see the video of your customer using your web app, and this helps in places where you are not able to reproduce the error. Okay. Then we have logs, which are very fundamental. We use OpenSearch and some kind of event logging we use using Google Analytics, GA. But yes, we are still working to explore how best can we get it on the web app side. We have done decent progress on the server side, but that is of no much use to us. Second part, monitoring. So as I told, metrics, set the threshold. Once the threshold exceeds, send notification. That is what your monitoring is, my bad. And this is what comes as alerting, or you guys would be knowing in form of AWS alarms. This is a sample integration which we are planning. Key from web apps, the errors which are coming on your client side, how can we bring it to AWS CloudWatch and then integrate it with a SNS and then something like an Ops Genie, which is an escalation management platform. It makes sure that if the error is happening and the alert is going, it goes to the right person, and the person, the developer, is acknowledging it. You can track how many alarms are going per day and if that is being acknowledged or not. Because errors, if not made actionable, are of no use for all of us. It just makes no sense. This is something like a SRE command center, you would say. We are still scratching the surface, but this is for one of our web apps, and I don't know, it's not very clear, but what you can see is, this is something where you can see core web vitals performance. This is where you can see page load versus error rate. This is where you can see the core web vitals, LCP, FID, route-wise. I'll share a more detailed picture in the next slides. This is how your resources are being loaded, fonts, image, and this is where which are your long-running tasks. So if I were to show, this I think is a little bit more clear. So you can see this, these are so many insights, and if you start making all of these actionable, you can own your product in a much better way, and I think you can be very preemptive in understanding what your customer needs and how can you optimize it without even product coming and telling you. Okay, this is performance metrics, same. These are web, so there we are analyzing all the routes in our application. The routes do not look very nice, but this is route-wise analysis of our loading, P75 loading time, web vitals, and so overall a complete anatomy of your web app. Okay, the last part, fix. This is very important. So I was talking about mitigation and prevention. First, mitigation. So import, say, build time optimization. So if you are having a downtime and you know what the issue is, but your fix takes 30 minutes to deploy. So every minute you're losing revenue. Does it make sense? That is why you need to have a specific build pipeline for your hot fixes that you can fix like within a minute, within 30 seconds, within 2 minutes, because it will take your containers to get up and then ultimately the fix to get deployed to their customers. Same rollbacks, we have blue-green rollbacks where you can make sure when you are pushing in a new feature, it is only deployed to 1% of the users, 1% traffic. And then we can, after 5 minutes, when we see everything is working fine, then we can roll the traffic to the remaining 99% of the users. If it does not work fine, if you start getting alarms, you roll back. So this is not a fix. The bad code is still there in your master, but it is not with your customers. Okay? The second part, prevention. So release engineering. So this is my favorite part because everything, unit tests, configuration management. If you are using 6 S3 repos to fetch 6 configs and your developers are manually changing the 6 configs, it's a very scary situation, right? Hard PR review checks, linting, security and performance scans, vulnerabilities you all are familiar with. So these kinds of checks helps you prevent bad code to go into production. Rate limiting. Your server will tell you rate limiting mein ki I can only handle X amount of requests per minute. If you send me more than that, I'll send you 429. So we do rate limiting because we do not want to get our server to get overloaded. Because sometimes if you have a scraping event or some kind of burst in requests like 30,000, 40,000 requests in a minute or under 30 seconds, your server might not be able to handle it, right? It won't happen a lot, but even if it happened 2 to 3 times and your website is down, it's not a good experience. Right caching strategy. You should have something on similar lines. You should have a right caching strategy, especially for a static views. You don't want your APIs to always go to your database to fetch information when you know that it is a static thing. Downtimes. Guys, so SRE is more than a mindset. We all say it is all in our mind. I do believe it. But SRE is when you put all the principles and philosophy into practice, that is where your systems start improving. You know, when you have a downtime, so what to do when you have a production issues? First of all, as you say, mitigate. Try to make sure that your downtime is, you reduce your time to downtime, right? The start to end time. And the depth, the number of services, your web services are getting affected. Then do a post-mortem or an RCA, which is basically sketch a timeline, how the downtime happened, what were the facts, and what you need to do to fix them. Then you follow up on your to-dos, right? So, guys, downtimes are scary. I have been through downtimes. Where production issues, when your websites are down, our CRM, which is built on web, is not working. Our systems are down, and you are losing revenue, you're losing orders, your agents are not able to answer queries because CRM is down, and it pains, right? Believe me. So I think, so the take from the talk is ki, as much as you would like to develop and build cool features, have a good eye up here, because this will help you make sure that whatever you build reaches to whoever you build it for, okay? Thanks a lot. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being a patient audience, and thanks for contributing to this wonderful web community where we thrive in. Thanks a lot.